Hey Disney cruisers, and welcome back to the DCL community where we are here to help you plan, prepare for, and get excited for your Disney cruise. You guys know me, I'm Rebecca, your host and admin of the DCL community. And today we are planning for something super special, something that's never been done before by Disney Cruise Line. This is uncharted territory. So I am so excited for this one, and I know you are too. If I know anything about Crissi, it's that Crissi and mega ships are like peanut butter and jelly. So as you went in, please let us know where you're watching from so we can say hi. But Crissi, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Crissi O'Kane, one of your recommended travel advisors within DCL community. And just like Rebecca said, I love Disney Cruise Line. I really do. But I have been hoping and praying and filling out every single comment card, begging for them to bring a mega ship for the past like 15 years. Like it's been a long time in my hopes and dreams, and it's finally becoming a reality. So I am so excited. And prior to this announcement, I already specialized in international travel, including Asia. So I'm very excited that Adventure is going to be sailing from Singapore. Super excited. And also all the cool things that this could bring, to Disney Cruise Line, the entire fleet in general, right? This is such a cool ship, such a crazy history, which we're not going to get into that in the presentation, but that could be a whole other presentation on its own. But it's such a cool ship, and it's such a fantastic thing that DCL is expanding the fleet in a big way, like a really, really big way. So I'm excited.
Yes. Oh my gosh, me too. And we have friends from all over the place. I'm seeing Pennsylvania, North Carolina, California, somebody watching from Egypt, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So I'm so excited for everybody to get to join in on everything adventure. And if you are ready to plan your Disney cruise, whether on the Adventure or any other of Disney ships or any other mega ships, please reach out to Crissi. She's here to help. Her planning services are totally free for you to utilize. And as we're going through this, you're going to see her knowledge when it comes to international travel. It's not just about the cruise, but about those pre-stays, about flights, about travel insurance. There's so many things that go into making sure that this is the best vacation possible. So lean on her and let her be that resource so that you can just focus on enjoying your vacation. But let's go ahead and dive in. And of course, if you guys have any questions, let us know. And I'm curious if people have any opinions on the adventure and everything we know so far, because I feel like the ship is going to be, it's just going to be like nothing we've ever seen, and that's the perfect segue here.
So really quick, so today slash tomorrow, this current time frame is a really cool time frame for DCL Adventure, because we do know that on October 16th is the next like reveal date, right? We already had one initial reveal date where we got all the information about Imagination Garden as well as new staterooms. But the 16th is a new reveal date, and we don't know what's going to be revealed. It could be just another section of the ship in more detail. It could be a launch date. We don't know. We don't know what they're revealing, but it's going to be a big reveal. The thing is, it's already the 16th in Singapore at this time. So it's 7 a.m. there. It's 7 p.m. here, where Rebecca and I are on the East Coast of the United States. So I will be up most of the night looking for new announcements and new news. So we're getting more information very shortly. But right now, we don't know a whole ton, except we know that it's a new ship design. Super exciting. New room types, because it's a new design. I'm going to get into that. New onboard venues and a new home port for Disney Cruise Line, which is so cool. And I do want to stress, this is a new home port for Disney Cruise Line. It is like you can get on a cruise out of Singapore today if you wanted to on other cruise lines, right? Like cruising out of Singapore is not new. It's just new for Disney Cruise Line. And it's a great port to sail out of for so many reasons. I got like whatever, the whole rest of the presentation, however many slides are all about how Singapore is going to be a great port. But this slide is really about the new build style. So I did go through and find one of the best pictures to really showcase how different this ship is. Now, this is from back when it was owned by Global Dream, before Disney took over. But it's one of those cool pictures where you can kind of like they've taken out the outside of the ship, so you can really see a cross section of the hull and see how big it is, right? Like massive, right? At one point it had a roller coaster. We don't know, so don't get your hopes up about the roller coaster. We don't know if that's going to continue. We haven't seen any evidence that's for sure there, so we don't know. But multiple slides, like 2 separate slide areas, multiple pool decks, and then this center area, okay, and this is Disney's calling it Imagination Garden. On other cruise lines, you've seen it labeled as Central Park. And this concept of having an open air space in the center of your cruise ship is only possible on a ship of this size. So there's just so many benefits to having a totally new ship design. And I know it's like really scary for Disney cruisers. They're like, I just want it to be the same, right? That's
Mhm.
what all of my clients say. I just hope it's the same. And I say, it won't be. And that's going to be great. It's going to be so great. It's going to have a lot of the same type of feel, right? You're going to have extreme dedicated quality customer service. That Disney will never compromise on that. They know that sets them apart across other cruise lines. You're going to have incredible character interactions. You're going to
Mhm.
have tons of Disney IP all throughout. We've seen it, right? We have a Mowgli themed restaurant. So that's pretty cool. And more
Yeah.
Moana things, an Avengers stage show, all happening in this one. Like there are 7 lands on this ship. So just one land has an Avengers stage show, a Moana restaurant, and a Mowgli like cafe. This is so cool. Just in this
Yes.
one area. Okay. So there's going to be so much Disney on this ship, so much because it's so big, right? Just imagine taking the fantasy or the dream and now having 3 times as many dining options and lounge options. Like how much flexibility that gives you,
Yes.
right? And so I think about all the time. There's a really famous quote from Walt Disney that says that Disneyland will never be complete as long as there's curiosity in the world. And I think that's so true for cruise line as well, right? We get so stuck in like, this is the perfect ship and this is the perfect cruise line, but it can still be perfect with its new, with new things added to the fleet, right? So I'm so pumped for this ship. It is a different ship for Disney Cruise Line, like massively different. It's enormous, right? It's like literally 3 of the fantasy, okay? But that means that it's got so many new opportunities that may or may not show up on future ships, on the next class of ships that's coming after Triton class. Some things may work really well and they're like, yes, incorporate that. Some things may be like, that's going to be exclusive to adventure. And this is such a cool kind of like testing ground for what works and what doesn't, and to give them the opportunity to try so many new things. And so I'm super pumped about it. So pumped.
Yes. And I know I've heard you make this point before about, sometimes people will hear mega ship and just think that's going to be massively crowded. But the cool thing is because it's so big, there are so many spaces. So people spread out more because
Correct.
it's not just the one lounge that's populated at night or the 3 bars, but there's so many different pockets where you can hang out.
Exactly,
So there,
exactly. And you'll find your people in your places. So when we sail on Icon of the Seas, like I never step foot inside that Surfside family area because we travel without kids. It's just not for me. It doesn't have something that I need in there. And that's the same thing that's going to happen with this ship, right? People are, oh my gosh, it's only a 3-night or a 4-night itinerary, but it's such a big ship. How will I do everything? And the truth is, you won't, but you won't want to either. There's going to be places that are really geared towards you and your family, and you're going to find your ideal spots. The other cool thing to think about with mega ships is that because they are so big, and Disney couldn't really shrink the ship, it was already pretty much built when they bought it, but they did change the capacity and they did reduce it.
oh,
So it is going to have one of the largest square footage per guest ratios of any ship sailing, larger than the other, like a higher square footage per guest than the current Disney fleet. So
wow.
thinking about that in perspective, right? It is really, really big. It is going to have way more passengers if it's full, which it could be, with ship capacity is a tough metric because most ships don't sail at capacity, right? Like, anytime Crissi and Nathan sail, that's a room that could sleep 4, but it only has 2 guests in it. So
Got it.
Disney Cruise Line does generally sail closer to capacity because it caters so much more to families than other cruise lines. So this ship could hit capacity for sure. It could. But even with that, you're still going to have more square footage per guests than the rest of the Disney fleet.
Got it. Oh my gosh. I am just so excited to see the ship come to life because
Oh,
I
yes.
feel, oh,
I'm
go ahead.
excited too. But I forgot one other crucial thing about this slide because I have pictures on it is that with this new ship layout, new design, it brings a whole new type of stateroom, right? So we
Ooh,
have photo evidence of this type of stateroom. I am hoping this is like a Crissi knowledge, nothing proven. I'm hoping that there's going to be another room type available just based on previous layouts of the ship. But you can see in this bottom picture that you have these rooms with verandas that are overlooking Imagination Garden, right? So these are what other cruise lines call like Central Park balconies or, interior balconies, right? And you're like, what does that mean? And this means that you have your own veranda, your own outdoor space, but it doesn't face the ocean. It's going to face somewhere inside the ship. So in this case, it's facing Imagination Garden. There may most likely be another area. So Imagination Garden is going to be on the backside of the ship. So there may be another area kind of more towards the front of the ship that will also be open to or I'll flip that around. Imagination's Garden's mid to forward. There may be another area kind of mid to aft on a different deck that's also open, and that could also have these type of rooms. On the Royal Mega Ships, this is the Central Park area, and the back area is the boardwalk area or Surfside on Icon. And these balconies are awesome for saving money. They're much more cost effective, and especially on a ship like this that's like just at sea, it's not going to necessarily have port stops, and it's only 3 or 4 nights. Like, do you need to see the ocean the whole time? I don't know. Would it be more exciting to be able to watch the Marvels or Avengers show from your room on your own balcony? That'd be pretty cool. Pretty cool.
That would be.
So that's a whole new room category that we don't have on any of the other Disney fleets. So I'm super excited for that. I'm also very hopeful, based on the previous layout of the ship as Global Dream, that there will be larger rooms, so you don't have to book like connecting rooms for families of 6 or families of 7 or even families of 8. That is a possibility. Rooms with little bunk bed nooks or family size rooms or ultra spacious or whatever term Disney uses to call them. So that has not been 100% revealed yet, but based on the previous ship layout, I think it's a high possibility that they did not change those rooms over to try to convert them into regular rooms, which would be really attractive and a big bonus for a lot of families that have 4 to 6 kids.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, having to put, in-laws here, mother-in-law, or, just kids. I mean, even if you have 3 kids, you're automatically, your options have been narrowed down. So that's such a good point. And somebody's asking, are those rooms loud? I guess those interior balcony rooms.
Yes and no. It depends on what's going on and where you're located. So if you choose, and obviously we don't know about this ship yet. It hasn't sailed yet, but based on the other ships that offer this type of concept, this area is comparable to Royal Caribbean's Central Park, and the entertainment in that area is generally like string quartets, or you have solo vocalists from their Broadway group. Can you hear them in your room? Absolutely. Is it loud? No. The other side of the coin, the boardwalk area, is very loud. You'll hear the carousel every morning when it turns on, but it's not going to keep you up at night. Like, the shows are over. So generally you're not in your room when the loud things are happening, but you will definitely hear it. If you close your balcony doors, then you don't hear much at all. But when you're out on your balcony, you will hear the entertainment that's going on. But generally, this like Imagination Garden, if that follows the same trends as other lines, it's much more calm, chill, more luxurious type entertainment, although it's also going to have an Avengers show. But I would imagine, like, how beautiful would a string quartet out there be? Oh my gosh, it'd be gorgeous. So it should be something more tranquil like that.
Yeah, and I was going to say, Disney always keeps these types of things in mind when they're planning. They're not going to have a huge party going off at midnight, because they know that there is a lot of little ones who, if they don't get that full 8 hours of sleep, it's going to cause for some angry parents in the morning. Mm-hmm. So Disney's definitely going to be keeping that in mind too. But gosh, I'm just so excited to see the ship and what the final designs are. And I've never been to Singapore.
Yeah, it's awesome. I have not been yet. It's on my list. It was on my list before this was announced, and now I've planned it a lot, and now it's definitely on my list to go sooner rather than later. But so, like I said earlier, Singapore is new to Disney Cruise Line, but it is not new to cruising in general. Out of all the Asia ports, this is probably one of the most suited for a high influx of tourism and for a very large ship to come. Singapore has, it's not listed in my little amazing facts about Singapore, but they have 4 national languages, but the number 1 is English. So it is very well suited for travelers from the United States, which, by the way, thank you everybody for sharing where you're from. I did kind of gear this presentation more specifically, especially when we get into flights for US travelers, but please message me from wherever you are. I work with clients literally around the globe, especially my Aussie clients. I've already started talking to you guys about your travel needs. Your travel needs are way different from the United States group, but I did gear this towards the US. So just keeping that in mind for this whole presentation. But I'm so stoked for the world to cruise Disney Cruise Line out of Singapore, because it's just an incredible city to visit. There are countless activities within Singapore. It's one of the most family-friendly cities to visit. Touring there with infants through toddlers is totally accessible. The heat can be a barrier, but most of the attractions are indoors or have air conditioning. And if they're not, like the outdoor botanical gardens, which are an absolute must, they're open late at night and they're still stunning at night, right? This is a city that truly doesn't sleep. It's stunning in the nighttime. And there's just so much to do, whether you're looking for history, whether you're looking for architecture, whether you're looking for nature, world-class dining. It's truly got everything, and it's very accessible via public transport. No need for like car rentals or anything crazy like that. I'm pumped about it, really pumped, because it's a great place to visit on its own. And so that's why I think a lot of people were very bummed about the announcement that the sailings were going to be 3 and 4 nights. And I was like, no, that's perfect, because that gives you like another 3 to 4 nights to just enjoy Singapore and then fly back home. And, your flight's going to be a day each on either end. So that's a full, 10-day vacation. And that's really fantastic. If they made the cruise any longer, it would be very difficult to accommodate with flights. So I think that that's a sweet spot. But you could also do more than just Singapore, which I think is my next slide. I don't know. I think.
Yeah, I was going to say back to back is always an option.
Yeah, what's beyond Singapore? And so this is something that I think a lot of kind of Americans need to kind of like switch your mindset, that you could do just the cruise and come back. That's truly an option. You could do just the cruise and then 3 or 4 days, or even just 1 or 2, but I would recommend 3 or 4 in Singapore. But Singapore is also, the airport itself, Changi Airport, is a destination in itself. Like truly, it's bigger than any airport in the US. It's massive. This is inside of the airport. There's its own little trolley and waterfall, and I mean, there's multiple hotels and all kinds of museums inside the airport. It's insane. But more importantly, it is one of the most major transportation hubs for Singapore and for all of Asia, basically for all of Asia. And then you can see a lot of Europe as well. And the route map that I have at the top is just Singapore Airlines. There are many, many airlines that fly out of Singapore. But really to show you all your options. So if you zoom in, I don't know if you can zoom in the Berka, but Singapore is like right out, you're almost there, a little bit to the left. Yeah, a little left. And it's that one. You're back over. Nope, other way.
Back over the other way.
Nope, you passed it.
Oh,
It's the one that's the like half blue, half yellow circle, kind of large.
Oh, that guy.
That one. So that's Singapore.
Yes.
Airport. And the rest, all of these countries are super accessible, and you don't have to fly. There's great like train and ferry options as well. But you can do multiple Asia cities on one trip very easy when you have Singapore as a starting destination, right? Over 240 flights per week just to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia alone. That's like literally, I can't even do that math, but it's like 30 a day to get to Malaysia. And then another 180 to Bangkok, and then so many to various cities throughout Japan, whether you wanted to do Tokyo or Osaka, so many options. So you can really hit multiple destinations in one trip, right? You could start with your flight to Singapore. It's going to be a long, long, long flight from the US. We'll talk about it later, but start with that flight, get it out of the way, do your cruise, relax, and then do a Asia whole itinerary. Do 2 or 3 days in Thailand and Malaysia and maybe even Vietnam, and then come back and like have truly seen a part of the world that is extremely ethnically diverse, has incredibly rich culture and history, and could just come back with so much more than just Disney memories, so much more to see out there than just a Disney cruise ship.
Oh my gosh, such a good point. And does Disney have any Adventures by Disney to go along with?
So we haven't gotten a full announcement like that any are paired with DCL Adventure at this time. Now, given the name Adventure, would not surprise me if that's coming. But maybe it's in the reveal. Who knows? But at this time, we haven't gotten a formal announcement. Does DCL Adventures by Disney have Asia itineraries? Absolutely, yes. But they at this point haven't like linked it to the cruise. Like there's no like cruise plus DCL with plus Adventures by Disney with transfers or something like that at this time yet. Maybe it's coming. It would not surprise me, but it might not be available in the first launch. You do have to remember that this launch isn't necessarily designed for the American market, right? The Asian cruise market is massive and it's not entirely untapped. Like I mentioned, there are cruises already sailing out of Singapore, but it's not being served to its full potential at this time, right? So this is a very large population that is already there in Singapore and ready to get on a cruise. So the demand from the United States, I don't think it's going to be nearly as high as the demand from Singapore. So kind of those additional supports are probably not going to be coming from DCL immediately. That's why you're going to need to rely on your agent very heavily in the initial stages. And then as it becomes more and more popular and less and less entirely based on the Asian market, then DCL may put in more supports and more incentives and more pairings with other things as well.
Beautiful. And Allie is asking, is the ship ever going to come to Florida?
I would say 0 to 0.5% likelihood of that happening. This ship in particular moving that far. It's, I mean, the current contract I was told is for 5 years in Singapore, and I just don't see the logic of transporting it, especially not to Florida. The potential, like most ships that sail Asia itineraries and also American itineraries and do both, will sail out of Seattle or San Diego, and they'll do a trans-Pacific crossing.
There
Um,
you go.
but even so, those ships are nowhere near this size. The idea of doing a trans-Pacific or a transatlantic with a ship of this size is unlikely, right? We just saw Oasis class ships doing it for the first time on Royal Caribbean, and they're not this big. They're still in mega ships, but not quite this big. And then the other issue is, well, who is going to be on that sailing? Is there truly enough demand for 6,000 passengers that are doing a one-way sailing? That's highly unlikely. So I would say highly unlikely that's going to Florida. Maybe it moves over to the West Coast of the United States, but still highly unlikely because these ships are purpose built for the Asia market. So really, that's most likely. If it went anywhere else, it would maybe look at a port out of China, but most likely
There
I
you
would
go.
stay in Singapore.
Yes, yes. And right, like never say
And that's
never,
all just
but
Chris's ideas, but
yeah, and I was gonna say the cruise line is continuing to grow, so there's gonna be more variety. So if Florida's a port that you want to sail from, that's awesome. I think we're gonna continue to see variety out of that port as ships
absolutely.
can start to move around. So reach out to Chrissy and figure out, okay, you've already sailed on the Wish 2 or 3 times. Let's get you on the Magic or the Fantasy or the Dream
Yeah.
or one of these other ships that's sailing out so you can try something new. But also Singapore seems pretty awesome. I feel like I could spend a whole vacation just in the airport.
You could. People do. People do. So how to get there from the United States? This is the biggest hurdle, and I mean, I won't sugarcoat it. It's currently the New York to Singapore direct flight is the longest flight in existence. So it's
Oh,
long, right? It's 18 hours and a half. So it's very long. There are more options than you think, though. So Singapore Airlines does have direct flights from New York. That's the longest one. And then also San Francisco, Los Angeles, and Seattle. You also don't have to fly direct, right? And that can be a really easy way to, one, bring the costs down, and two, change up your vacation a bit, right? So you can fly, if you're flying from the East Coast, you can fly to almost any major hub in Europe. Rome is probably the most popular one for flights to Singapore, but you could do Greece, you could do London, and you could do 2 or 3 days exploring a European city that you've wanted to see, or even just
yeah.
one, even, and then hop on a flight to Singapore the next day. Totally doable. You also want to make sure you work with your agents that you have the right documentation in order to do that trip. But again, that breaks the flights down into 2 much shorter ones. But you could also look at programs like Turkish Airlines, which has an official stopover program, and it'll include a full day tour of Istanbul included in your flight and a hotel. And it breaks that flight down into 2 approximately 10-hour flights. So that's a really good one because it is almost right smack in the middle. And it's a very fun city to tour during the daytime. So you see, like I kind of put the flight out of New York on here. So it's going to arrive early in the morning. So you're going to sleep that first night. You're just going to sleep on the plane. And then you have a full day tour of Istanbul included. And then you'll get on, so like from like 5 a.m. till like the next day, 5 p.m. So you've got like 35 hours in Istanbul. That'll include a hotel stay and a city tour and dinner, all provided by Turkish Airlines. And then you'll be escorted back to the airport, and then you'll fly to Singapore in the next morning. So the whole flight, it is like a 3-day experience. And then your flight back, you can do it without the tour, and it'll be much shorter. So it kind of breaks that super long flight up.
Yes, I love that idea. I mean, what a great way to experience it. You have that incentive because I
Yeah,
mean, nobody likes a super long flight. It just
yeah.
it drains you. So getting that experience that helps drive local tourism, I love that idea. Good for Turkish Airlines.
Totally good. And there's other airlines that have similar concepts, but Turkish Airlines is kind of known for it. You have a really good setup for it. They're also very geographically located to kind of break up some of those really long flights that are just starting. It's also something that if you are looking at one of those direct flight options, like for instance, Rebecca and I live on the East Coast, but we don't live in New York. You do want to start to look at like positioning flights, right? So you don't necessarily want to book your flight from Virginia or Georgia direct to Singapore. You may want to look at a separate flight just to New York and then book that direct flight separate. Same thing, you might want to book your own flight over to LAX and then book that Singapore Airlines flight by itself, just so that you can kind of give yourself the most options as far as time for those positioning flights, potentially use airline miles, all those type things. When looking at long haul international flights, you do really need to kind of put planning specifically into the flight portion. You can't just kind of wing it and let Google tell you what's available. Really kind of finagle with it and look at all of your options, especially if you're trying to do it the most cost effective possible. If you're just trying to get there as fast as you can, then sure, Google will tell you, and you can go ahead and type in first class and it'll be an amazing experience. If you've ever Googled Singapore Airlines first class, go for it. But if you're trying to make it cost effective, then you do need to kind of put some extra planning into your positioning flights as well.
Yes, I was going to say there's so many options when flying. So, this is a good thing. You can bounce off ideas with Crissi, and especially considering things like the jet lag, the travel time, where you're going to be staying once you get there. Is there a travel insurance that might help cover more internationally than just here in the US? There's a lot of options. And then, of course, your options are going to vary if you were somewhere else in Asia. So looking at those different the repositioning, I'm thinking about cruises, but those different positioning flights might look a little bit different. So definitely good to bounce those ideas off of Crissi to help you get there and not be sleepy. I know if I travel one time zone over, I need like a 6-hour nap to catch up. So definitely going to need to bake in like a full day or two just for me to
absolutely
correlate.
So like we mentioned, we're expecting some more news very shortly. It's still only 7:30 a.m. in Singapore, so we'll give them like a little bit of time to wake up and get to their meeting and see their presentations and all of that. But right now, what can you be doing with the information that we have currently, right? So we know it's sailing 3 and 4 night itineraries sometime in 2025. We may or may not get a launch date tomorrow. So right now you can start browsing flights. And if you're planning on using airline points as miles, like start kind of compiling that information together and then reach out to your travel planner and chat through kind of what you want the entirety of this trip to look like. Do you want it to be just the cruise? Totally okay, if that's what you want. Do you want it to be cruise plus like extended stay in Singapore? Or do you want it to be like that multi-destination trip that I mentioned, right? Like, can we start building you an itinerary with Thailand and Malaysia or Vietnam? Like so many, or Japan. Do you want to go to see Tokyo Disney? Totally an option, right? All kinds of things. So, but you need to make sure that you have a travel advisor that's strong in international travel. This is huge, right? This is a Disney cruise. This is going to be available to book through travel agents that specialize only in Disney destinations. Totally, fine. But there's so much more to this type of trip planning than just the cruise itself. That if you book with your local Disney World expert, you may be setting yourself up for having to do a lot of the extra legwork yourself. And if you're comfortable with that, totally cool. But this is the time that I would really talk to your advisor about what types of services they offer for international travel, how available they are, and how experienced they are, right? There are over 430 hotels in Singapore. It's like according to Singapore Tourism Board, that's over 70,000 hotel rooms in one city. So it's a lot. And we want to make sure that you're at the right one for you and your family and your budget. Most likely Disney Cruise Line will have partner hotels that are able to be booked through Disney Cruise Line, but there's going to be like 3. So, and they're probably all going to be towards the high end of budget as well. So, you want to make sure that you're with an advisor that can accommodate all of that for you, kind of make you an all-inclusive with your cruise and your hotel and your daily activities and any additional transportation that's needed. If you want to truly have an advisor that's part of this vacation. If you want your advisor to just book the cruise, totally cool. But if you really want to have an advisor that's going to be part of your team and planning, then I would definitely start to talk to your advisor and make sure that that's in their skill set. And if it's not, then reach out to a different advisor, because there are plenty of amazing advisors that are really excited about Asia itineraries.
Yeah, Chrissy has done a great job at giving the advice of, setting those expectations with your travel advisor. Not everyone is going to be the same, and that's okay. So having those conversations early and often, I can tell you that Chrissy has been over the moon excited about the Disney adventure since the second they started talking about it. So
Very
working
true.
with somebody who's got a passion not just for Disney Cruise Line, not just for mega ships, but also for international travel, specifically within Asia. I mean, it's like the perfect dream team combination. So make sure that you have somebody who's going to be your advocate and help her throughout the process.
And
Bonus
here's my
slide.
bonus slide. All right. So, what if, even after all of this excitement of this presentation, with everything about how great Singapore is and all of the other places you could easily get to from Singapore, you're like, but I just want to cruise. I feel you. I just want to cruise too. I love cruising. Okay.
Yes.
So, you can definitely book back to back sailings and give yourself a longer DCL sailing. And there's pros and cons to doing that. I do think that this is not the best ship suited for that. We did have a question in the YouTube chat about where is it going, like what destinations, where does it visit? And at this time, we haven't had a 100% confirmation, but I would say it's like 95% clear based on the wording that these are going to be entirely magical day at sea itineraries, either 3 or 4 of them, meaning that it starts in Singapore and it sails out and it comes back. It doesn't stop anywhere in between, partially because of the massive size of the ship, that it is somewhat limited in where it can port. And the wording doesn't 100% say that. It says 3 and 4 night sailings with magical days at sea. If they were stopping at Malaysia or Thailand, like the other 3 and 4 night sailings with other brands out of Singapore do, I think that would have been very clear in the wording up front that, they would be 3 and 4 night sailings visiting Thailand, or visiting Phuket, or visiting, or Penang or whatever. So, but that's just my thought. But right now we are leaning towards that they are going to be entirely at sea, which is why doing a back to back, I don't think is the best value, right? Because it's just going to be like, it's basically like you're booking a floating hotel. It's a magical Disney floating hotel. But you're not actually visiting multiple destinations. Whereas if you were to book a back-to-back on other cruise lines, on Disney Cruise Line, you could book an Eastern and then a Western, or you could book a 3-night and a 4-night and have, 2 stops at Castaway plus a Nassau, like all kinds of different benefits to booking that back-to-back. In this case, you're really just getting more time on the ship, which maybe that's what you want. So go for it. But you could also booking a back-to-back, but on multiple cruise lines, right? We can line these up. And there are several great options, but these are 2 options from Princess that I love, that visit different places, right? So the Princess has a Vietnam itinerary that's round trip from Singapore, and it has a Malaysia and Thailand itinerary that's also round trip from Singapore. Celebrity has one-way sailings that start in Singapore and end in Hong Kong or Vietnam. So that's super cool because you've kind of made a bunch of stops. And then instead of flying home from Singapore, you're flying home from Hong Kong, or you could do Hong Kong Disneyland and then come fly home.
Yeah.
And then Royal has short sailings, 3 and 4 nights with stops in Thailand. So personally, if I was going to do a back-to-back, that's probably what I would do. I would stay in Singapore and I would do first the DCL Adventure, and then I would do Royal Caribbean on it's either going to be Ovation or Anthem. Those are the 2 ships that sail out of there, and they're both Quantum class ships. Excellent ships, lots of cool high-tech technology, and you get a day in Thailand. So how cool, or sometimes 2 days, depending on the itinerary. So there's lots of ways to cruise using Singapore as your home port, and not all of them are with Disney Cruise Line. So I'm very excited that Disney Cruise Line is joining the Singapore show. But if you want to have an all cruising vacation out of Singapore, you can include Disney Cruise Line in that and still make it a long, 12 to 15 day cruise experience if you so choose.
Yes, I was going to say, especially, I mean, even if you're not coming from the US, making the most out of your time. I mean, having 3 and 4 nights is fantastic. And if that's the time off that you have, that's what you have. But making, giving yourself those extra couple of days and being able to maximize your vacation time, it just makes such difference when you return to the office and you're not just completely drained because you spent the whole time just getting there and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
So I love the idea of mixing and matching cruise lines too. You don't just need to do a back-to-back with Disney.
Totally.
You can mix and match experiences too. And I think that's another great reason to reach out to you, because you know about these different cruise lines, and if you're sailing adult only with kids, for how long. I mean, there are so many different factors that go into planning the perfect vacation. Oh man, Singapore. It's on the list. It may have not been before, but now it is. I mean, I cannot tell you how excited I am. I know as soon as this announcement comes out, you're going to be sharing about it on your social
Absolutely.
media.
Yeah, and I'll share it directly into our group as well for sure.
Yay! Oh my gosh. Well, if you are as excited as I am, I don't know if anybody's as excited as Crissi is, but if you are ready to start planning your Disney cruise, whether on the adventure, I feel like a parent who's like trying to figure out which kid they're talking about. I'm like, Destiny, Treasure, no, like
I know.
which
There's
ship
so
am I
many
talking
new
about?
coming. It's
I
amazing.
know. But if you want to start planning your Disney cruise, no matter what ship or just your cruise in general, reach out to Crissi. When I tell you she is the queen of cruising, I mean it. And let her help you just be that resource in your cruise planning. Let her help answer all of your questions and help you navigate through that process because you're going to have a lot of questions and she's got the answers. And again, her planning services are totally free for you to utilize. So that is the link to her page on the DCO community site. And I'm going to get this in the comments for everybody as well. But Crissi, thank you so, so much for hanging out with us and talking all things adventure. I cannot wait to see what this announcement is. But either way, we will see all y'all on board real soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.